Rain lashed against the sidewalks like punishment from the sky. Streetlights flickered, casting pale shadows over the cracked pavement of Riverdale, the kind of place where dreams rot before they bloom. 17-year-old Tiana Thompson pulled her soaked coat tighter around her frame, her tennis shoes squishing with every step as she made her way home from the diner. A long shift, greasy apron still tied around her waist, and a $10 tip that barely made the cold feel worth it. She didn't complain. Life had never promised her comfort. She was used to being invisible, used to people walking past her like she didn't exist. It was just her and Grandma these days, holding down a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like gospel vinyl and Vicks VapoRub. Electricity came and went like relatives. And yet Tiana had dreams, wild ones. She wanted to be an engineer. She read borrowed physics books under flickering street lamps when the power got cut, her fingers tracing circuit diagrams like sacred blueprints of escape. As she reached the old iron bridge that split Riverdale from downtown, a sudden scream ripped through the roar of the storm. Then headlights. Swerving. A screech. Then, nothing. No. Not nothing. A splash. Tiana stopped. Heart racing. She dropped her bag and sprinted toward the railing. Below, through the sheets of rain, she saw it, a silver car, nose first in the river, its tail lights dim and flickering like dying stars. The current pulled hard, spinning the car slightly, but it was still visible, barely. People were gathering now. Frozen. Filming. Whispering. He's rich. Someone will help. But no one moved. Without thinking, Tiana vaulted the guardrail, her fingers cutting on rusted metal as she half climbed, half slid down the embankment. The water was black and angry, frothing at the edges like it wanted to bite. She heard herself shout, "Help! Someone's in there." No one answered. A man's face appeared behind the cracked window of the car. Trapped. Terrified. His hands were bloody from trying to break the glass. His eyes met hers, pleading. And still, no one moved. Tiana plunged in. The cold punched her lungs. The current dragged at her legs. Her fingers numbed instantly, but she forced herself forward, pushing toward the sinking car. She pounded on the glass with her fist. Nothing. Then she grabbed a jagged rock from the riverbed and slammed it again and again until cracks spiderwebbed across the window. Inside, the man had stopped moving. She screamed under her breath and braced herself, then yanked the door handle with every ounce of strength she had. It groaned. Stuck. She kicked at it. Pulled again. The water surged into the car, and with it, she felt the door give. She reached in, grabbed the man by the collar, and pulled. He was heavy. Too heavy. Her lungs screamed. Her arms burned. But she didn't let go. Then, a hand. Another person appeared, finally. A stranger grabbed the man's other side and helped haul him out of the river. Someone called 911. Tiana crawled onto the embankment, shaking. Her arms were cut, her knees bruised, her breath shallow. She was soaked and trembling, but alive. And so was he. Then came the sirens. Blue and red lights splashed across the riverbank as the cruiser pulled up, tires hissing against the wet pavement. The crowd had grown now, faces lit by phone screens, recording, whispering, murmuring things they wouldn't dare say aloud. Tiana sat slumped near the edge of the embankment, gasping for breath, her arms streaked with blood, her hair soaked and plastered to her face. She didn't even look up when the officer approached. "Hey," a voice barked. "Step away from the car." Tiana blinked, confused. She looked around. The man she had pulled from the water was gone, already taken by the paramedics. The stranger who had helped vanished too. The rest? They just stood back. Watching. Two officers approached. One had his hand on his holster. "Stand up," the other ordered. I just saved, she tried to explain. Where were you before this car went off the road? The first officer interrupted. What? You pushed it, didn't you? Tiana's mouth fell open. What? No. I saw it fall. I jumped in. I pulled him out. But the second officer narrowed his eyes. So you were here, alone, when a wealthy man's car suddenly crashes into the river? I don't know who he is, she said. Her voice was shaking. He was drowning. You're bleeding, the first said. From smashing the window? I had to, he was trapped. The handcuffs clicked before she could say another word. No, wait, what are you doing? She cried. I saved him. You have the right to remain silent, one officer began, ignoring her words as he pulled her arms behind her back. She looked around again. The crowd was quiet. Filming. Whispering. But not one of them stepped forward. Not one. That silence screamed louder than the cuffs tightening around her wrists. The walk to the squad car felt longer than the swim through the freezing river. She could barely hear what the officers were saying, their voices muffled through the blur of disbelief in her head. Something about grand theft. Something about attempted murder. They shoved her into the back seat. The door slammed. It was pitch black inside. Cold. Wet. Was this what doing the right thing got you? Tiana felt a lump rise in her throat, but she clenched her jaw. No one would see her cry. Not them. Not tonight. And then, squealing tires. A black SUV came out of nowhere and skidded to a halt in front of the cruisers. The back door flew open. The same man she had just pulled from the river stepped out, staggering slightly, an oxygen mask hanging loose from his neck. He was barefoot, soaked, furious. Stop, he shouted. Every officer froze. He walked straight toward the cruiser where Tiana sat, eyes burning with disbelief. That's her, he said, pointing. That girl saved my life. The officers exchanged awkward glances. Sir, we were told. Told by who? The bystanders too busy recording on their phones to help. I was dying. She jumped in. No hesitation. I couldn't even breathe, and she dragged me out. He leaned down toward the window. His face was pale, but his eyes were focused. What's your name? He asked. Tiana hesitated. Tiana. Well, Tiana, he said, standing back up and glaring at the officers, you're coming with me. But sir, we can't. Do you know who I am? His voice cut through the night like a whip. The badge wearers hesitated again. He didn't wait for an answer. I'm Dale Remington. That name made everyone flinch. Dale Remington. Billionaire. Tech mogul. Owner of multiple banks, a prominent investor in urban renewal, a man whose every move was tracked by business headlines. And I'm telling you, Dale continued, you nearly arrested the one person who did the right thing tonight. The silence was deafening. One of the officers quickly unlocked the cruiser door and removed the cuffs. Tiana's hands were red and bruised. She stepped out slowly, staring at Dale, unsure what to say. Thank you, he said quietly, looking her in the eyes. You saved my life. Tiana didn't answer. Her body was still in shock, her soul flickering between rage and relief. All she could think was, if he hadn't shown up, if he'd been a few seconds too late, would they have locked her away forever? Would anyone have even known? Dale Remington's mansion wasn't even in Riverdale. It perched on the edge of the city like a crown, glass and marble, glowing softly behind iron gates. Tiana sat stiffly in the back seat of the SUV that whisked her away from the river, still soaked and shivering, her cuts beginning to sting under the heat from the vents. She didn't understand what was happening. She only knew that she'd gone from being handcuffed to being chauffeured, by the very man she had saved. Dale sat beside her, wrapped in a heavy coat, flanked by two assistants nervously whispering into their phones. Every so often, he looked over at her like she was a riddle he hadn't solved yet. "You didn't have to jump in, you know," he said, breaking the silence. Tiana didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on the road ahead. "I mean it," he continued. "No one else did. You risked your life. For a stranger." "You weren't a stranger," she said quietly. "You were a person." He blinked. No one had spoken to him like that in a long time. They pulled into the gated estate, where staff in suits ran out with blankets and towels. One tried to guide Tiana inside, but she hesitated. "I should go home." "You're not walking anywhere like that," Dale said firmly. "You're bleeding. You need dry clothes and a warm drink at least." "I'm not looking for charity." "It's not charity," he said. "It's the bare minimum after what you did for me." She gave in, finally, and followed him into the mansion. It was like stepping into another world, one with heat, light, and the faint smell of jasmine. Everything was spotless. Elegant. Cold. He sat her down in a room with a fireplace the size of her bedroom. A woman brought her tea. Another handed her dry sweats and a hoodie to change into. Tiana moved like she was still underwater. When she returned to the room, Dale was watching the news. There it was. Her story. The headline read, "Black teen girl pulls billionaire from drowning car." Underneath it, grainy footage showed her dragging him from the river, her face barely visible, the crowd doing nothing. She stared at it, unblinking. "They got your name wrong," Dale said. "I'm having it fixed." "They called me a suspect," she muttered. "They didn't even ask my name." Dale didn't respond right away. He looked at her the way someone might look at a mirror they'd never cleaned, suddenly realizing what they'd missed. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I don't need your sorry. I know." He leaned forward. "I need to do more than say thank you." Tiana looked at him, her expression guarded. "Like what?" "I want to help," he said. "Not just with clothes or some photo op. I want to help you build the life you deserve." She narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "Because I saved your life." "Because no one else would have," he said, voice steady. "And because the world saw your bravery. Now they'll know your name." He stood and turned the TV off. "What do you want, Tiana?" She blinked, surprised. No one had asked her that in years. "I want to be an engineer," she said slowly. "I want to fix things. Build things. Make the world better than it was when I got here." He smiled faintly. "Then let me help." The next day, the world exploded. Tiana's face was on every screen. News stations praised her as a hero. Social media lit up with hashtags. But not all the attention felt good. Some headlines praised her bravery. Others questioned her background. Teen hero comes from crime-ridden neighborhood. Who is Tiana Thompson really? They dug into her school records. Her neighborhood. Her family. Even her grandmother's grocery bill made it into one report. Tiana stared at the screen in Dale's mansion, her stomach in knots. "They don't care that I saved you," she muttered. "They care that I'm poor. That I'm black. That I'm not the kind of girl they expected to see doing something good." Dale frowned. "That's not how it should be." "But it is." Tiana stood. "And if you really want to help me, Mr. Remington, don't just fix it for me. Help me fix it for everyone who looks like me." He stared at her for a long moment. Then nodded. 3 days later, the press gathered like vultures outside Lincoln High School. Tiana walked up the steps slowly, trying not to feel the weight of 1,000 camera flashes. The media circus had finally reached her turf. Reporters shouted questions. "Tiana, how did it feel pulling Mr. Remington out of the river?" Do you think your actions will inspire other teens from underprivileged backgrounds? Has the city offered you anything yet? She said nothing. Just walked. Inside, it was worse. Whispers followed her down the hall. The same classmates who used to ignore her now stared like she was a glitch in the system, an unexpected rise. A couple offered fake smiles. Some girls rolled their eyes. Her chemistry teacher awkwardly clapped as she passed. She felt like a stranger in a place that used to pretend she didn't exist. Until someone slammed a locker and hissed, "Must be nice, getting famous for swimming." Tiana froze. The voice belonged to Kaylee Brandt, daughter of a city councilman, blonde and bitter, who never missed a chance to mock. Tiana stared her down. "I saved someone's life." "Sure," Kaylee sneered. "And now you're on TV and being interviewed like you're some saint. You think people care about you because you're brave? Please. They care because Dale Remington's rich. If it had been someone poor in that car, you'd be in jail right now." Tiana didn't respond. Because deep down, she knew Kaylee was right. Later that evening, Dale's driver picked her up again. They weren't going to the mansion this time. They were going to City Hall. She didn't even know why until they pulled into a rear entrance guarded by private security and a sea of media vans. She was ushered inside, through hushed halls and double doors, until she found herself standing in the mayor's office. Mayor Collins, a sleek man in his 50s with polished shoes and an empty smile, extended a hand. "Ms. Thompson. I've been meaning to speak with you." Tiana shook it cautiously. "Your story has moved this city," he said, settling behind his desk. "We'd like to honor your bravery publicly." She blinked. "What kind of honor?" He leaned forward. "A formal commendation. City medal. Public speech." "And what about the officers who cuffed me before asking a single question?" she asked, bluntly. The mayor's smile faltered. "There will be internal reviews." She nodded slowly. "Then I don't want your medal." There was silence. "I want something better," she said, lifting her chin. "I want funding for a STEM program at my school. I want scholarships for kids who dream big but don't get the chance. And I want those officers held accountable, not just reviewed." Mayor Collins looked at Dale for backup. But Dale said nothing. Just folded his arms and waited. The mayor cleared his throat. "That's a bold request." "It's the least you can do," Tiana replied. For the first time in his life, the mayor was the one who looked like a deer in headlights. "Very well," he said finally. "We'll work something out." That night, as Tiana rode home, the city lights blurred past the windows. She thought about her grandma humming gospel in their tiny kitchen. She thought about the night sky above Riverdale, cracked and clouded. And she thought about how close she came to drowning in something far colder than water: silence, suspicion, the system itself. She didn't save Dale Remington for attention. She didn't ask for a medal. But now that the spotlight found her, she was going to use it like a torch. The auditorium was packed. Local news crews buzzed around the perimeter, capturing every handshake, every carefully curated smile. Students from Lincoln High filled the seats, some still in disbelief that all of this was for someone they used to ignore. On stage stood the mayor, several school board members, and at the center, a new banner. STEM Rising, the Tiana Thompson Initiative. Tiana waited in the wings, heart thumping. She was wearing a navy blue blazer Dale had sent over, one that made her look like she belonged at a corporate meeting instead of a cracked apartment in Riverdale. But her fingers trembled. She hated attention. Hated the way the spotlight made her feel like she had to prove she was worth seeing. Dale walked over, fixing his tie. "You nervous?" he asked. "Terrified." "You've faced worse." She nodded. "Yeah. Like drowning. Or getting arrested for saving your life." He laughed softly. "Touché. The mayor stepped up to the podium. Today, we honor not just a young hero, but a force of change. Tiana Thompson didn't just risk her life, she reminded us all that courage often comes from the places we least expect. That's why we're proud to announce a $2 million investment, half from the city, half from private donors, to fund a multi-year STEM mentorship program in partnership with Remington Technologies. Applause. Flashes. Tiana was called on stage. She stepped up to the microphone, blinking under the bright lights. For a second, she couldn't breathe. But then she saw her grandma in the front row. Saw the principal beaming for the first time. Saw the rows of kids who might now have a future, because of her. I didn't jump in that river because I thought someone was filming, she began, voice steady. I didn't save Mr. Remington because I thought it would lead to scholarships or headlines. I jumped because I saw someone drowning, and I couldn't live with myself if I stood by. Silence. But the real story here isn't me. It's what happened after. It's the fact that the first thing anyone did was put handcuffs on me instead of asking what happened. It's that if Dale Remington hadn't shown up, I might still be sitting in a cell. She paused. Let it settle. I'm not here for pity. I'm here to make sure no kid like me ever has to choose between doing the right thing and being treated like a criminal. So if this platform means anything, let it mean this: we see you. We believe in you. And you deserve more than survival. You deserve a future. The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was thunderous. She walked off stage to tearful hugs and praise, but deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. The following week, the first applications for the Tiana Thompson Fellowship Program rolled in. Dozens of kids from neighborhoods just like hers. Dreamers. Builders. Survivors. Kids who had never seen someone like them on a stage, commanding a room full of power. Tiana spent the weekend helping sort applications alongside Dale's team. She read essays that made her cry. One boy, only 13, wrote about fixing broken microwaves in his apartment building because no one else could afford a repairman. Another girl wrote code on public library computers between her babysitting shifts. Dale sat across from her, watching. You're changing lives, he said. I'm just paying it forward, she replied. No, he said. You're rewriting the rules. Tiana looked up, a faint smile on her lips. You know, she said, when I was little, I used to imagine I was invisible. It made it easier when people ignored me. But now, I'm going to make sure they never look away again. 2 months later, Tiana stood at the edge of a tech startup's campus in downtown Riverdale, the first of its kind built west of the bridge. Construction had just begun, funded in part by Dale's foundation and matched by the city thanks to her push. A row of shovels gleamed in the morning sun as cameras clicked and ribbon-cutting speeches echoed across the lot. But Tiana didn't care about the ceremony. She cared about the blueprint clutched in her hand. This, she said to the project manager, is the computer lab. I want those desks facing the window. Natural light makes people believe in the future. The manager nodded, scribbling notes as Dale strolled up behind her. You've got a knack for this, he said, watching her work. I told you, I want to build things, she replied, a small smirk playing at her lips. He handed her a clipboard. You just got appointed to the board overseeing this entire project. Full vote. Tiana blinked. Are you serious? As a river accident, he said with a wink. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. It felt good. But that joy was short-lived. Later that night, as she scrolled through her phone, she found a new headline trending. From hero to hustler. Critics question motives of teen Riverdale girl behind sudden rise. The article was filled with cheap shots, anonymous sources, out-of-context photos, even a mention of her father, who left when she was 5. It accused her of capitalizing on a tragedy and riding billionaire coattails. Tiana's stomach churned. She tossed the phone aside, pacing her room. A message popped up. Dale Remington, ignore them. You're doing something real. They're just scared. She replied, they'll always find something to hate. His next message came after a minute, then give them something they can't ignore. That night, Tiana went live on social media. No makeup. No script. Just her, in her grandma's kitchen, sitting under the dim light. You want the truth, she said, looking straight into the camera. I didn't ask for fame. I didn't plan any of this. But I'm not going to apologize for turning one act of courage into real change. She leaned in. And if the world's uncomfortable watching a black girl rise? Good. Maybe it's time they learned how to watch us win. It went viral in hours. Celebrities shared it. Activists quoted it. Kids across the country stitched it into their own stories. By morning, Tiana Thompson wasn't just a headline. She was a movement. In the weeks that followed, the fellowship expanded. A second campus was planned. Dale introduced her at industry events, proudly calling her his partner in purpose. Invitations flooded in, talk shows, podcasts, summits, but Tiana chose carefully. She wanted impact, not attention. And quietly, behind all the noise, she started working on something even bigger. A platform for young inventors. Run by students. Judged by engineers. Sponsored by the very companies that once ignored kids like her. She called it, Ripple. Because one act of bravery, she said, can create waves that last a lifetime. It had been 1 year to the day. The bridge over the Riverdale Divide looked different now. It had been repainted, reinforced, and fitted with a new plaque, a memorial not to loss, but to courage. Flowers lay beneath it, and a small digital screen told the story of a girl who didn't wait for permission to do the right thing. Tiana stood there quietly, a light wind tugging at her braids. She was 18 now. Officially. A legal adult. But she felt older. Wiser. Weathered in ways most people her age weren't. She no longer walked invisible. She no longer kept her voice small. Behind her, Dale approached, holding 2 hot chocolates. I figured you'd come. I had to, Tiana said, accepting the cup. They stood in silence, watching the river churn below. You know, Dale began, I still don't remember the moment the car went over. It's all a blur. But I remember your face. Through the glass. Just, staring back at me. You looked like you were on fire. Tiana smiled faintly. I was angry. Not at you. Just, at the world. I was tired of watching people do nothing. He nodded slowly. And now look. She turned around. Behind them, the new Ripple Institute campus rose from the skyline, glass and steel, humming with energy. Students were already moving in for the summer program. The buzz of possibility filled the air. A news van passed by, but neither of them paid it much mind anymore. I got accepted to MIT, she said softly. Dale turned, stunned. You're kidding. Full ride. They called it, unanimous and historic. Said no one with my background had ever made it in quite like this. He grinned wide. You're going to change the world. Tiana sipped her drink. I already did. They both laughed. Then her smile faded slightly. You know what sticks with me most? What? That no one believed me. Not until you came down that hill. Not until you said something. Dale looked at her, ashamed. I'll never forget that. She touched the edge of the plaque. We need to make sure the next Tiana doesn't need a billionaire to be believed. He nodded. We will. That evening, she visited her grandmother. The apartment hadn't changed much, still warm, still gospel, still home. The walls now had pictures of Tiana shaking hands with CEOs, giving speeches, hugging kids in after-school programs. But her grandma still kept the original article, the one that had first called her a suspect, folded behind the fridge magnet. "It's good to remember," she always said. "Reminds you how far you've come." As Tiana sat down at the table, her grandma handed her a small box. "What's this?" Tiana asked. "Something your mama left for you before she passed. Said to give it to you when the world finally heard your name." Inside was a simple necklace. Silver, shaped like a wave. "She always said you were going to be a storm," her grandma said. "But you turned out to be the tide." On the night of her departure for MIT, Dale called her. "There's something I've been meaning to tell you," he said. "What?" "I've added a new clause to all of my company's philanthropy contracts. Any time we give, we ask one question: will this help a kid like Tiana Thompson? If it doesn't pass that test, we don't fund it." Tiana blinked. "You named a policy after me?" "No," Dale said. "I named a standard." In a world that too often doubts the intentions of young black girls, Tiana didn't wait to be accepted, she acted. And through that single moment of instinct, she transformed her future and thousands more. Her story isn't just about bravery, it's about what happens when society finally listens to the voices it once ignored. Some people wait for a chance. Others become the reason it exists. Thanks for watching this episode of True Echo. If Tiana's story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope. Don't forget to subscribe, drop your city in the comments, and tell us, what would you have done on that bridge?